Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of D.E.I. Deathwatch, the show where we chronicle the doubling down and the dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'll get all my D words right today, somehow, some way. But before we get into today's stories, who's joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon? We have the Alexander. Good afternoon. Old Guy Gamer, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. Walter Tomaszewski, hello. Oh my gosh, part 1. Oh boy, okay. I told Doomcock about Philip sneaking snacks. Doomcock gave him a round of applause. Philip has now embarked on a life of crime, pestering Daddy at every turn for foodie. Part 2. It's a matter of time before Philip shakes down the neighbors for Doritos and chicken. Doomcock has unwittingly contributed to the delinquency of a cat. Delinquent cats. All cats are delinquent. Well, I mean, most of them are relatively refined and well-behaved, but they are all messengers from the underworld. That I know to be true. Unfair Ophelia, good afternoon. Mike Savage, blarg. Keeverdam, good afternoon, and thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links to the GoFundMes for our friends Twisted Skipster and Angela Arriaga. Guys, please take a look at those pinned to the top of the chat box. Twisted Skipster is raising money for his daughter's wrestling club, and Angela Arriaga is raising money to start her home-based business. So please, if you can donate to those, do so. But even if you can't, if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. And thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the links. Who else is here? Shady Grin, good afternoon. TF Oryx, hello. JB, hello. Blue-Eyed Scream, hello. Robert Pincus, good afternoon. Miranda Stone is here. Guys, I don't know if you know about Miranda Stone, but let me tell you. Evil One, good afternoon, and Evil One is over on the X machine. Yes, everyone, I am simulcasting on X, so if you happen to have an X account and see the stream over there, please do retweet it, just for the heck of it. It's a small gesture you can make that helps out a lot, or at least that's what I'm told by the algorithm. Daryl Odell, good afternoon. The Dead Man, hello. Just Another Guy, good afternoon. And JPS, hello. And I think that's everybody. If I missed you, if you're lurking, or if you're in the future, good afternoon. All right, so we got a lot to get into today, lots of stories, and a little video. I found a video from ages gone by, just to sort of underscore how things used to be before people got scared to tell everybody exactly what they were thinking. And Juliet is here, and Resolute Germ, hello. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start off with the Smithsonian Institute, the Smithsonian Museum Director steps down amid Trump DEI crackdown. Oh boy. Was this in protest? What happened? The director of the National Portrait Gallery has stepped down 2 weeks after President Donald Trump singled her out for partisanship and announced in a social media post he was firing her. Oh, you can't fire me. I quit, apparently. Smithsonian Secretary Lonnie Bunch announced Director Kim Saget's resignation in a Friday email to staff obtained by National Review. He said Kevin Gover, the Undersecretary for Museums and Culture, will serve as acting director effective immediately. Quote, "This was not an easy decision, but I believe it is the right one," Saget said in a message included in the email Friday. Quote, "From the very beginning, my guiding principle has been to put the museum first. Today, I believe that stepping aside is the best way to serve the institution I hold so deeply in my heart. The role of a museum director has never been about one individual. It is a shared mission, driven by the passion, creativity, and dedication of an extraordinary team," unquote. Okay, well, I admit I am ignorant of the circumstances surrounding this. What did Trump say, and on what basis did he say it? Trump announced he would fire Saget in a Truth Social post on May 30th, in which he called her a, quote, "highly partisan person and a strong supporter of DEI, which is totally inappropriate for her position," unquote. The president had previously issued an executive order in March in which he said the Smithsonian has come under the influence of a, quote, "divisive, race-centered ideology," unquote. Trump directed Vice President J.D. Vance, who is a member of the Smithsonian's Board of Regents by virtue of his office, to spearhead an effort to remove improper ideology from the museums. Well, I mean, I can believe that DEI had found its way into the Smithsonian, but specifically, what are we talking about? Quote, on day one, President Trump made clear that there is no place for dangerous anti-American ideology in our government and institutions, White House spokesperson Davis Ingalls said in a statement shared with National Review. Quote, in align with this objective, I mean, in alignment? I admit, I don't know. Is that an appropriate use of the word align? Because I would think in alignment. But anyway, in align with this objective, he ordered the termination of Kim Saget. The Trump administration is committed to restoring American greatness and celebrating our nation's proud history, unquote. It remains unclear if the president has any legal authority over personnel decisions at the Smithsonian, which receives part of its budget from Congress and the federal government, but operates as an independent entity from the executive branch. Well, whether he could fire her or not, she quit. So I guess it's kind of irrelevant. I'm still curious to know, what did she say and or do that brought Trump's ire? The announcement of Saget's resignation comes days after the Smithsonian, which oversees more than 20 museums and the National Zoo, issued a statement saying the secretary of the Smithsonian Institution retains control over all personnel decisions. Okay. The statement also said the museum would undertake an assessment of the institution and evaluate the need for any changes to policies, procedures, or personnel in order to align with its nonpartisan mission. Well, if you're nonpartisan, what would you be doing that would not be already? Why would you need to audit it? Like what? Quote, since its inception, the Smithsonian has set out to be a nonpartisan institution, the statement said. As the nation's museum, the Smithsonian must be a welcoming place of knowledge and discovery for all Americans. The Board of Regents is committed to ensuring that the Smithsonian is a beacon of scholarship free from political or partisan influence, and we recognize that our institution can and must do more to further these foundational values, unquote. What is she said to have done? I've gotten almost to the end of this article. I mean, if Trump's accusations are completely unfounded, then by all means tell me they're unfounded. If they're not unfounded, or if his justification is hidden somewhere in her words or deeds, please edify me. I'm dying to know. Bunch said in an internal email to staff Monday that some of the Smithsonian's previous work has failed to align with its role as a nonpartisan institution. Like what? Quote, in recent weeks, important concerns have been raised about partisanship within our institution, he said. While the vast majority of our content is rooted in meticulous research and thoughtful analysis of history and facts, we recognize that, on occasion, some of our work has not aligned with our institutional values of scholarship, even-handedness, and nonpartisanship. For that, we must all work to do better. Such as what? Asked if Saget's resignation was a direct result of the review of personnel and policies initiated Monday, the institution declined to comment. Why? Are you transparent or not? Quote, her decision to put the museum first is to be applauded and appreciated. I don't know, guys. Her quitting at the timing of it seems to be an admission of guilt, unless you guys have some clarification. But of course, we don't have any clarification here. Quote, I know this was not an easy decision. She put the needs of the institution above her own, and for that we thank her. You keep saying that, but I don't know how that's the case. What is she said to have done? Or broadcast? Well, the National Review is not going to tell me. I had thought the article would tell me some information, but just for the sake of trying to be somewhat informative for myself, if for no one else, how is Kim Saget related to DEI, if at all? Let's see. Does anybody else have a story that might say otherwise? Let's see. She led the institution for 12 years. Okay. Anything at all? If there is detail on why she resigned or what she's accused to have done, I don't see it offhand. So I guess I'll have to follow up on that at some other point, because apparently the National Review can't be bothered to tell us. But anyway, in the absence of any other information, it is at least implied that if she hadn't quit, then they probably would have fired her. I guess. If anybody in the chat happens to know or come across it in the meantime, as I have other stories to get to here, do let me know. Put a bunch of red alert symbols or something around it so it'll catch my eye out of the corner of my eye. I'm still just working with a single monitor. I know I'm operating in the 20th century rather than the 21st century, but that's just the way I am. I'm a Luddite after a fashion. Let's see. Read by Nature, good afternoon. Who else is here? Anybody I missed in the meantime? I hope not. Oh, Peter! Moot. Okay. Ostzan, hello. And Walter Tomaszewski, thank you so much. Thanks for putting up with my silliness, Scribe. It's not yours. I blame the cats. If they weren't so silly, you'd have nothing to report. So, I blame the kitty cats. Angelverse, good afternoon. Or morning, as the case may be, depending on where you are. But anyway, in the absence of any more details on what happened at the Smithsonian, let's move on to what shall we do? How about, you guys know that the U.S. school year is ending? Yeah. And it's the first time that the U.S. school year ends under shadow of Trump DEI orders. Guys, a shadow has descended upon education because of Trump's DEI order. Yes, a thick and heavy blanket of despair has descended. Oh, what shall we do? June 16th. Hey, that's today. As the school year comes to an end across the United States, many teachers are wondering what they will return to in the fall. Well, barring something else happening, I'm assuming their jobs. While most of the attention on education in the nation has centered on President Donald Trump's battles with universities, the administration has also vowed to close the Department of Education and issued broad orders targeting diversity and instruction of structural racism and gender in schools, raising concerns about what teachers can and cannot say and teach. Well, don't tell your students that they are either good or bad based on their skin color. I know, it's a crazy notion. It's so bizarre of a thing to have to expect from public school teachers. Not to praise or denigrate your students over things that have absolutely nothing to do with their character or academic output. But, crazy idea. Angelverse, thank you so much for the how's it going, Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow.
No, there's a Kiever Dam Dogcat Fox. Thank you, Angelverse. Appreciate it. But yes, everybody, what would they come back to? Targeting diversity and instruction of structural racism. Yeah, because there's no structural racism in public schools in the United States today. No. Especially not in hiring practices of teachers. No. And gender in schools. Yes, teaching children that there's more than one, more than two genders. There's not a monogender. There's more than two genders. Yeah, no. Raising concerns about what teachers can and cannot say and teach. Well, how about saying and teaching things that are demonstrably true? How about that? Teach history without passing judgment on modern audiences. Can you do that? I know it's difficult. Quote, I've noticed this past year, teachers have been a lot more nervous whenever they're teaching, said Ryan Matrigali, 17, a Florida high schooler. You know why they're nervous? Is because they've gotten away with academic manslaughter for the last decade, and now they're having to watch their P's and Q's. That's why they're nervous. Because they've had just an absolute rockin' time indoctrinating students into this nonsense without any kind of obstacle for a decade or more, and now suddenly the chickens have come home to roost. I know. Crazy. Yeah, it's like, you mean I can't turn my students into activists anymore? You mean these students aren't my children? They actually belong to their parents? What? I can't be the guru I always saw myself as? I just have to be an educator? That's so lame. Ryan Matrigali, if I'm saying that correctly. He recently spoke up at a school board meeting in support of former AP English teacher Melissa Calhoun, who was let go after using a student's preferred pronouns, according to documents obtained by Reuters through a Freedom of Information Act request. Oh, is that why she was let go? Was that the only reason she was let go? I only ask, I don't know. Is that it? Quote, with all the rules and the school board cracking down, they're not allowed to be as open with topics, Matrigali told Reuters. Well, Ryan, I hate to tell you this, you're only 17, and you've only known what you've been told by activist teachers to this point. So, I think, I'm afraid that more likely than not, you've been a victim unwittingly of indoctrination. It's going to take probably longer than should be necessary to work your way out of it and make up your own mind about things, but c'est la vie. Calhoun could not be reached for comment. She had been employed at Satellite High School in Florida's Brevard Public Schools for 7 years. On April 1st, an auspicious date, she received a notice that her contract would not be renewed, along with a letter of reprimand from the superintendent, who cited a state law that requires parental consent for certain communications with students. The law does not outline specific disciplinary action for teachers. Oh. Okay, well, I can't say if the superintendent's interpretation of the law was correct or not, but just for using the kids' quote-unquote preferred pronouns, that's the only reason? I feel like there's more to this story that we're not hearing. State law that requires parental consent for certain communications with students. What were you talking to the kid about? Satellite High School and school board officials did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Parent activist, that's a good sign, Amy Raub is part of a coalition of students and parents advocating for Calhoun's reinstatement and challenging a climate of fear she says has become more pronounced among teachers under the Trump administration. Again, teachers have been allowed to run rampant for years, and now suddenly the boundaries are having to be reestablished, and that means you feel like you're being oppressed. Right? We've encountered this so many times now. You stop enforcing the rules, you stop enforcing boundaries long enough that people get accustomed to being able to run rampant. And then when somebody comes in and says, wait a second, no, we're not going to do that anymore, what seemed to be perfectly normal and acceptable behavior for you now has to be restricted, and like, I'm being oppressed. Quote, I'm trying to get them to come to school board meetings, but they're terrified, said Raub, referring to teachers who express support anonymously, but fear retaliation. You mean fear consequences of violating policy and law? Oh. Quote, it's time to be brave, because once we start rolling over, we've already lost, unquote. Okay. Aside from the one example so far provided, whether it's true or not, or complete or not, someone used a kid's preferred pronouns, what are you talking about? Tina Deskovich, co-founder of the group Moms for Liberty, has championed conservative parental rights for years. You know, the quote-unquote conservative parental rights that I keep hearing about are just common sense parental rights. Like, maybe a public school teacher shouldn't take it upon themselves to discuss sexuality with my child. That kind of thing? It doesn't really seem like a conservative thing. It just seems like a common sense kind of thing. With members taking over many school boards across the nation and becoming a force in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Oh, okay, so they practice democracy in trying to be the change they wanted to see. Okay. Quote, the claim that Trump's order infringes on teachers' free speech is misguided, she said. Okay, and now Reuters, you're going to allow her to expand on that counterpoint, yes? Let's find out. Where goes Florida? All right. Well before Trump's re-election, Florida led the way in advancing the Republican Party's education agenda. That's one way to look at it. Or you could say they were trying to fight back against a insane progressive indoctrination program that really had nothing to do with party so much. But anyway, it was among the first to ban books in K through 12 schools. You mean curate the kind of literature that's available to children? Reuters is doing yeoman's work on the wordplay here. I'll give them that. And introduce legislation preventing diversity programs and initiatives statewide. Yeah, well, I have my own concerns about how they word those too. Now, across the country, teachers, parents, students, and advocates who support free speech, do they, and inclusive education in classrooms are worried Trump's executive orders will reshape public education nationwide. You know, the last thing I am at this point is worried. I'm hoping it reshapes public education nationwide. I hope it turns back the clock on public education. But Reuters, are you going to... I don't know. I mean, I understand there's no sort of complete middle road. Objectivity is like the pursuit of perfection and so on. But could you be a little less slanted here in one direction? Maybe? The moves have been driven by the administration's view that teachers have prioritized teachings of white privilege and unconscious bias. Well, many have, and I've profiled quite a few. Hey, Reuters, I have a whole playlist called Curriculum of Fear, where I've chronicled dozens of examples of this happening in public schools and colleges over the last 10 years. It's not a theory. It's not an allegation. It is a fact. A January executive order banned schools from teachings Trump called indoctrination of students based on race and gender. Yeah? The directive was followed by a Dear Colleague letter from the Department of Education, the Education Department, instructing schools how to enforce the executive order and a warning that any school continuing such practices would lose federal funding. And say it with me, kids. What function of federal law would do that? Say it with me. If you said Title VI, you're right. Title VI. Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Yes, if you discriminate on the basis of race, and I believe this particular section I pulled out just focuses on the racial element, but I believe also, because of Title IX and as well Title VI, if you discriminate on the basis of gender, you also risk losing federal funding. So, there you go. Yeah, it's true. Let's see. Trump also aims to abolish the Education Department, which funds districts that serve low-income communities and students with disabilities and enforces civil rights laws. Do they enforce civil rights laws? I mean, I guess it all depends on the state and the jurisdiction, but do they? Because I see a lot of Title VI being violated left, right, and center in a lot of schools. I have some evidence of that. Again, plugging my playlist. Federal courts have either halted enforcement or issued temporary injunctions pausing implementation of the directives. Yes, because as we know, one district judge can completely put a freeze on the executive branch. A federal judge also blocked Trump's attempt to shut down the Education Department. Yeah, I know. Anything Trump decided to buy a hoagie sandwich yesterday, this decision was blocked by a federal judge. But teachers are already feeling their impact. On the final day of school at Lewis and Clark Middle School in Meridian, Idaho in late May, Sarah Inama took down a poster in her classroom that read, quote, "Everyone is welcome here," unquote. Oh. So here we have an example of petulant compliance. Like, well, if Donald Trump said that DEI is no longer allowed in the classroom, obviously, that means that people of color are not welcome here. I better take this sign down before I'm arrested for hate speech. She said school administrators told her the sign violated the district's policy requiring classroom displays to remain content neutral. Everyone is welcome here. Yeah, I think school administrators are as well practicing petulant compliance. The sixth grade teacher resigned, blaming Trump's directives and school administrators for her decision. Oh, stunning. Stunning and brave, everyone. She resigned. She's no longer allowed to be explicitly or implicitly racist and sexist in the classroom. I just can't go on. I had better find other work. Maybe I can be a DEI consultant. I hear that's a booming business. Quote, I was told that my poster represented an opinion, Inama told... Uh-huh. Yeah. But I said, what's the other opinion? That they're not welcome? Yeah, it almost sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? I would like to see this sign. I would like to see if there's anything else on this sign other than the words, everyone is welcome. I don't know. I'm mildly curious to know. I have a feeling there was more on that sign than simply the words, everyone is welcome. I think some information's being withheld from us. I don't know why I say that. Quote, the district's responsibility is to ensure that schools remain inclusive spaces for all students while also staying within the bounds of what is legally permissible in public education settings, unquote. Nikki Sheppers, Chief of Staff and Communications at West Ada School District, said in an emailed statement. Yeah, that sounds great. What was on the sign? What else was on the sign? In New Hampshire, Valerie Wolfson, 49, is one of 7 teachers who filed suit in conjunction with the National Educators Association, NEA, and the ACLU against the Trump administration's anti-DEI instructions, saying it violates its interpretation of Title VI of the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964. Okay, well, I'm open to this. What do you say is the incorrect interpretation? Title VI prohibits the discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs that receive federal financial assistance, including public schools. Yes. Quote, you can't talk about Jim Crow without talking about race, Wolfson said. Okay, you're an idiot. You are an idiot. Let's read this again, shall we? Title VI prohibits the discrimination based on race, color, or national origin in programs that receive federal financial assistance. Teaching history is not discrimination in programs and activities on the basis of race. You idiot. This is what I'm talking about. Petulant compliance. It's like, okay, let's read it again, shall we? Just for our own edification. Okay. Title VI prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. Teaching history that involves racism is not discriminating on the basis of race. If you only taught history about Jim Crow to black students in your classroom and said all the white students had to go away, then you'd be violating Title VI. But simply talking about historical events that involve racism or Jim Crow does not qualify. You idiot. Simple justice requires that public funds to which all taxpayers of all races, colors, and national origins contribute not be spent in any fashion which encourages, entrenches, subsidizes, or results in racial, color, or national origin discrimination. Yeah, so teaching about the evils of Jim Crow, teaching about racism as a historical fact in America's history is not a violation of Title VI. If you think that's how things work, you should not be teaching. Some teachers' unions are working to safeguard educational autonomy by embedding protections into collective bargaining agreements. In Chicago, the teachers' union secured a landmark contract in April that included explicit language on academic freedom and protections for marginalized and immigrant students. What kind of protections? Atlanta history teacher Lena Hamilton said she is determined to continue teaching race and immigrant history. Quote, the philosophy that raised me as a teacher was one that I think is deeply American, Hamilton said. Well, hey, history teacher Lena Hamilton, if all you're doing is teaching about race and immigrant history, if that's it, if you're just teaching about history and you're not excluding students from participation, or you're not telling students that they are good or bad on the basis of their race, you've got nothing to worry about. I mean, as a history teacher, I would hope you understand the simple language of Title VI. But maybe not. I don't know. Pardon me. I got a little heated there. Let's check out what you guys are saying. Let's see. You idiot! Stimpy! You fat, bloated idiot! Breeze Feats. This infantilism is everywhere. My very elderly uncle was in hospital, and nurses station in his ward had a poster of the world and a card with an arrow pointing to the country of origin for each nurse working in that ward. I mean, okay. Seems harmless enough to me. Here's where we all come from. Like, okay. I mean, unless that map was meant to fill out a quota or something, but I don't know. What about Jim Eagle? Also, Stimpy, you idiot! I'm at work. Don't tell the boss. I gotta go. Okay. I don't know. Let's see. They are suing Trump for violating Title VI. Did I read that right? Yeah. That Trump's executive order reinterprets Title VI to punish them. Which, and the argument is, I can't teach about Jim Crow. No. It's the same thing as, oh, well, there was just an order issued that said I can't teach diversity, equity, and inclusion in my schooling programs. I teach biodiversity in my science class. I guess I can't teach biodiversity anymore. I guess biodiversity is illegal now. Well, I'm just going to stop teaching. In fact, I'm going to resign. I protest this authoritarian denial of scientific reality. I'm taking my business elsewhere. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, Ames S. Good afternoon. Hello, scribe mate. Sure. Wait. I think you're only allowed to say that if you're Australian or a New Zealand or a Kiwi or something. I don't say mate. Like chap or mate. That's all that limey stuff. I'm not allowed to say that. I mean, you can. I mean, if you are. I mean, if it's okay if you are. I can't. It sounds silly coming from me. Oh, you're British, huh? Hello, governor. I'm British. I am. Okay, anyway. I have just embarrassed myself. I have shamed my family and the Shaolin Temple. I apologize. Anyway, moving on to other stories. Let's see. Oh, that's a video. No, I don't want to do the video yet. Let's take a look. If you didn't know it, guys, in the Trump era, companies are rebranding DEI efforts, not giving up. Oh, wait a second. This published March 30th. No, I'm not going to do that one. I have a feeling I already did that one or something similar. How did that get mixed in? I try only to get stories that are within the last, few days or so. I apologize for that. I don't want to go over trodden ground if I can help it. Let me check and make sure that I didn't accidentally grab anything else. And that's June 13th. Okay. June 12th. Okay. June 16th. All right. Everything else is appropriately recent. Okay. I got excited there for a second. I was like, well, is there a new list of companies that are doubling down? Apparently not. But let's try this one. Federal DEI and wokeness restrictions put California homeless providers in a bind. Uh-oh, guys. California homeless providers, people who provide homelessness, are in a bind. Okay. Let's see. Welcome. Okay. All right. Homeless service providers across California and as much as $683 million in federal funding for the state's most economically vulnerable residents have been caught up in the Trump administration's war on wokeness. Or, and I'm just guessing here, or in the case of the money that the federal government is providing these organizations, that they are finally having to call them to task for, say, violations of Title VI because they are recipients of federal financial assistance. Are they prioritizing who they give the money to on the basis of a racial test? I'm just asking. Just asking. Beginning earlier this spring, organizations that use federal Continuum of Care program grant money to provide housing, rental assistance, street outreach, and other services to tens of thousands of unhoused Californians started receiving notification from the Department of Housing and Urban Development that those dollars now come with an unusual list of conditions. Oh, okay. Grantees would be barred from using the funds to promote, quote, gender ideology, unquote, elective abortions, unquote, and illegal immigration, unquote, among other restrictions. Well, I mean, if it is granting of money to provide housing assistance, rental assistance, street outreach, then if you're doing something other than what you should be doing with that money, then I guess that would be a violation of your agreement. I mean, if I get grant money to create a inspirational piece of art, and I instead use that grant money to go to Vegas and blow it on the roulette wheel, and they find out, I could be, not only susceptible to having that grant money cut off, but also having to pay it back because I lied. But let's see, violating those terms carries a possible financial penalty valued at 3 times the grant amount and even criminal charges. Oh my gosh, almost like you misappropriated federal funds or something. According to communications the care providers received from the Federal Housing Department, the conditions are part of a broader effort spearheaded in a set of executive orders signed within hours of his inauguration to purge the federal bureaucracy and federally funded programs of quote-unquote illegal DEI and quote-unquote gender ideology extremism, unquote. Yeah, I know, the misappropriation of federal funds. Fraud of a kind, let's say. If I take money for one purpose and I use it for something else against the agreement I made with the federal government, For the charities, faith-based organizations, public housing authorities, and local governments that accept these grants, the new conditions present a dilemma. Why? Why do they present a dilemma? They can agree to terms, hopefully keeping themselves out of the administration's crosshairs. Okay, the next word in this sentence should not be there unless there's something really shady about to be said. So let's find out. They can agree to terms, hopefully keeping themselves out of the administration's crosshairs, but some service providers say potentially undercutting their ability to help California's most vulnerable by doing so. Please explain. Is this going to be another article that doesn't explain what they're talking about? I got a feeling. Or they can fight back and risk a costly legal battle, a potential loss of funding, and the possible ire of a president with a penchant for political retaliation. No. Okay. You're going to really have to clear this up for me. The federal government says, okay, you are an organization that assists homeless people. We are going to give you money specifically earmarked for the purpose of helping homeless people. If what you do with the money does not go towards helping homeless people or is clearly going to other initiatives or other agendas, you will be penalized. Do you agree to take this money on those conditions? It's either a yes or it's a no. If you think you're going to be tempted to use it towards something that is not dealing directly with benefiting people who are homeless, you should probably decline. What is the problem? What do they think they're going to be forced into doing or not doing as a result of this? Santa Clara and San Francisco counties have opted for the second path. Okay, so they're going to legally fight Trump on this. Okay, on what basis? What is it that they fear is going to happen? And I'm asking sincerely because the article's not telling me. In May, the two counties joined a lawsuit against the Department of Housing and Urban Development alongside 29 other local governments and agencies. The coalition argues that the Trump administration overstepped its constitutional powers in tacking on the culture war-inspired restrictions on spending approved by Congress, that it did so without following the rules that govern regulatory changes, and that the restrictions themselves are, quote, unconstitutionally vague, unquote. Okay, well, don't use this money for the homelessness issue on promoting gender ideology. Don't use this money meant for helping the homeless on assisting in illegal immigration. I mean, now that one, I could kind of see how that one might be tough, because if you have homeless people who are illegal immigrants, are you disallowed from helping someone who's starving on the street just because they're not a citizen? Maybe. The Federal Housing Department said it will comply with the court's order, according to Santa Clara Public Information Officer Peter Galetta, but that the county has so far been unable to access the $4.6 million covered by grant agreements and the court order, he added. But that the county has so far been... Okay. The nearly 40-year-old Continuum of Care grant is the largest single source of federal grant dollars aimed at addressing homelessness. Okay, I'm going to hold you to those last two words there, addressing homelessness. In the last fiscal year, more than 200 California local governments, public housing authorities, and nonprofits were awarded $683 million. That includes San Francisco with $50 million and Santa Clara County with $34 million. The restrictions present the providers with the impossible choice of either, quote, accepting illegal conditions that are without authority contrary to the Constitution and accompanied by the poison pill of heightened legal risk, the groups wrote in their legal filing, or foregoing the benefit of grant funds paid for, at least partially, through local federal taxes that are necessary for crucial local services. Okay, I still haven't had it explained to me. Why are the conditions illegal? I mean, and this is one of the things. Did Trump's executive order do an end run around regular procedure? And if it did, should it have? And if it shouldn't have, guess whose responsibility it is to clarify the law around such things? Congress. But, okay. I mean, here's the thing. You know, maybe I agree in spirit with what Trump is doing. That doesn't mean I agree with the method by which he's doing it. If it is illegal, if it's actually illegal, or it actually runs into an ambiguity in law that has yet to be clarified, then maybe it should be clarified. I'd like to know, though, from these organizations, that they are just using the federal dollars to address homelessness. That they're not fighting back because their pet projects and personal agendas would be threatened if they actually had to use the money for what it's supposed to be used for. That's why even if there's some legitimacy to their argument, I can't help but feel there's some measure of a smokescreen going on here. Among the restrictions at issue, the federal contract prevents any government agency that receives grant funds from abetting, quote, policies that seek to shield illegal aliens from deportation. Okay, so if you're using the money, well, shield illegal aliens from deportation. Okay, well, if you're trying to conceal their presence from federal officials or something with money that you were granted, or you as an organization are intending to stifle federal authorities' efforts through your work, then yeah. So why give me an example of what they're afraid of as being brought down on this. Such terms made it impossible for Santa Clara County to sign the agreement, said County Counsel Tony Lopresti. Quote, there are all kinds of policies that benefit undocumented immigrants, so it's just not clear what they would wrap into that definition, he said. Policies that seek to shield illegal aliens from deportation. If you're assisting them in hiding from federal authorities or trying to intervene in investigations that might lead to deportations, you're not allowed to get involved if you're taking this money. It's pretty easy. You can feed a homeless person who's not a citizen. You can shelter a homeless person who's not a citizen. But if John Law walks in and says, we're going to do a search for people that we believe to be here in the country illegally, you can't stifle them. You can't aid and abet in a crime. Quote, it gives the administration an incredible amount of license to interpret that in ways that are completely unconstitutional and unlawful, and then to hold that over our heads for purposes of receiving this grant funding. Don't break the law. Okay, do not aid and abet illegal aliens. The end. Yeah, and shield them from deportation. So basically, don't help them hide from law enforcement. That's the long and the short. You can feed them. You can give them shelter. You can help them out in any other way you would a homeless person. But when it comes down to brass tacks, if ICE shows up, you're not there to try to hide them. That's... What is unclear about that? So far, the fight back strategy appears to be working. Okay, last week a federal judge in Seattle, why not California? We got 2 counties in California and a federal judge in Seattle had to rule in your favor? Okay. And guys, can you believe it? Something initiated by the executive branch in this country was stymied by a federal judge. I'm shocked. A federal judge in Seattle ordered the federal government to hold off on enforcing the terms of its conditions on the cities and counties in the lawsuit until the constitutional questions can be resolved at trial. The local governments, quote, are likely to prevail in their claim that the federal government has, quote, run afoul of the separation of powers doctrine and were acting in excess of statutory authority, Judge Barbara Jacobs Rothstein wrote in her June 3rd order. I guess we'll find out as it proceeds. And again, here's the thing. I'm no fan of executive orders. I'm no fan of constantly expanding executive power. If there is an appropriate way through which Trump could have, changed the restrictions or clarified the conditions on these grants, then good. He should have done that. If the executive order actually supersedes his authority and is actually unconstitutional, I hope that line is drawn because I am sick of executive orders. I don't care which president it is. I am not a fan of presidential fiats or attempts to, run over Congress. I mean, Congress should be held responsible when it comes to these things, oftentimes. Clarifying the law, restricting executive power, and so on. They don't want to, because if they restrict executive power now, then they won't have those toys at the hand when their guy's in the office. But anyway. Boy, this goes on forever. Okay, I'm done with this story. Gone on enough about that. I've said my piece. The Mum afternoon char. Well, everybody likes a good cup of tea, right? Oh, chat. Oh, okay. I was being British there. Sorry, British. You got to take the T out and put an apostrophe in the middle to say it correctly. That's what I've learned from movies and TV shows. British. Also, Snortapoopas Cuber. Hello. And let's see. K. Roberts. It's okay. The homeless can use their electric automated taxis. Oh, wait. They've been... Yeah. Wago. Is that the name of the company? Yeah, they're not coming back to LA anytime soon. No way, no how. They got the message. I think what's something like 9 or 10 of their cars got completely torched. Yeah, they're not coming back to LA. I think that market is dead for a while. Admittedly, I've never been in an automated taxi. Has anybody here been in an automated taxi before? Either a Wago taxi or something similar? What was your experience? I'm honestly curious. I would be on edge. I have a hard time trusting a machine with my life. I mean, unless it's a pacemaker, I guess. I don't have a pacemaker, but I'm just trying to think of like a machine that I'd have to like passively, constantly trust with my life. Yeah, pacemaker would probably be good. Let's see. Blue-eyed Scream. What exactly do these people do to solve homelessness? Well, it's for homeless services. So I'm assuming food, shelter, and perhaps programs to try to move people towards being able to afford their own place, job placement, things like that. I could imagine quite a bit when it comes to that. Now, if you're not in the course of that sort of business injecting gender ideology, if you're not in the course of that business assisting an illegal immigrant from hiding from federal authorities, I don't see what the problem is. But if it's a question of procedure, if it's a question of overreach of authority, then so be it. If this isn't the proper procedure for changing or refining the restrictions on the grant policies, okay. If there's already an established procedure, then that is the one that should be gone after, unless for some reason there's an emergency that can be cited or there's legal precedent that can say otherwise about what the president's powers are over federal grants. So, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I also thought that at the end of the day, the purse strings on such things fell to the House of Representatives and or Congress writ large, first and foremost. I really don't like the idea of the president overriding Congress or effectively giving Congress a pass on their responsibility of legislation through executive orders. Again, doesn't matter which president. Could be Trump, could be Biden, could be anybody. Or say Obama with DACA, but that's a whole other thing. All right, let's talk about one of the headline stories I put up on the show. Baltimore city budget doubles down on DEI. Oh boy, guys, they're all in. They're pushing all their chips into the middle of the table, apparently, over in Baltimore. The Baltimore city government is planning to establish a new series of standalone offices focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Oh boy, well, hey, I look forward to Baltimore losing all of its federal funding and or subsidies and or tax breaks. But let's see, because as we've said before, simply having the moniker DEI on something does not inherently make it legally questionable, so let's see what they plan to do. Mayor Brandon Scott's preliminary budget for fiscal year 2026 creates standalone services for several offices, including immigrant and multicultural affairs. You know, these already sound like ERGs. African American male engagement and LGBTQ affairs. So let me think about this for a second. So are you telling me you're going to establish a program or activity explicitly for people on the basis of their race or national origin? Golly, I mean, I am just an armchair legal expert here. It's true. I'm not a lawyer. But I think that might raise a little bit of a red flag. Possibly, maybe. The total budget for the three offices is $2.7 million. The plan comes as the city faces an $85 million budget deficit. So in the face of an $85 million budget deficit, we're going to throw nigh on $3 million towards offices based around immigrant and multicultural affairs, so illegal immigrants, African American male engagement, so a not only a racist but also sexist office, and LGBTQ affairs, so prioritizing someone's orientation and or their physical outward presentation. Okay. A spokesman for Mayor Scott's office emphasized that the funds for the new standalone officers are reallocated from already existing services. Oh, so you're just moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. Okay. Quote, Mayor Scott proposed standalone services for these offices to make it easier for them to manage their own budgets. The spokesman emailed Spotlight on Maryland. Quote, previously, these offices were funded under the Executive Direction and Control Service. By establishing standalone services, the offices now have their specific budgets listed. Well, I guess that might make auditing easier, sure. These services now provide annual report outs on performance measures. This change improves the overall transparency of the city's budget. Okay, so previously they were operating in the shadows. You didn't know what they were spending the money on. It was just one big line item. But now we can see what each office is doing and also provide annual reports on their performance. Okay. I am honestly very curious to know what the metrics are for the Immigrant and Multicultural Affairs Office, the African American Male Engagement. I mean, I suppose you'd have to count how many African American males you engaged with and set a goal. Somehow. David Williams, the president of the Taxpayer Protection Alliance, said that Baltimore City should focus on ways to address the $85 million budget deficit. No. We're just going to reallocate the money that we don't have to spend on spending on things that don't produce anything beneficial to the city. That's what we should be doing, obviously. Quote, the last thing they should be doing is virtue signaling with taxpayer money. Well, you're right. You're absolutely right. But this is the world we live in. And that's what these new offices are, he told the Spotlight on Maryland. Quote, the city needs to focus on core services. I agree. And yet, this is what's happening. So maybe when the next election rolls around, the preliminary budget provides information about the operations of each standalone office. Oh, great. The Office of Immigrant and Multicultural Affairs, which has a $966,348 budget, is, quote, responsible for advising on matters relating to foreign-born communities, unquote. Wow, thanks for clearing that up. Okay. Quote, the goal of this service is to coordinate city outreach and support of immigrant communities living in the city, the office description reads. Quote, major activities performed by the service include, all right, here we go, providing technical assistance to agencies on serving these populations. Managing the city's language access program. Okay. And overseeing communications and outreach to ethnic civic groups and responding to needs of immigrants, unquote. Well, I mean, I feel educated. I don't know about you guys. That certainly clears it up. That makes perfect sense as to where nigh on $1 million is going yearly. Pardon me a second. I think my phone is ringing off in the other room. Pardon me. You called right in the middle of a stream. So hold on a second here.
Am I on the air?
Yeah, you are now on the air. Everybody, this is Sister Scribe. She didn't know I was on the air. I'm not angry at her or anything. But tell the audience what question you just asked me. Hello? Did you hang up on me? Do you not love me anymore?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I was just telling the audience, you did not know I was streaming, so I'm not angry to you or anything. But
thank God.
well, I know you were worried about that. But no, tell the audience what question you just asked me a second ago.
I said, hey, Starlight, do you have any recommendations for a good interrogation true crime video?
Do I have any recommendations for a good interrogation true crime video?
I do, but...
Well, let's see. The first stop I would go is probably Dreading.
Okay.
And on Dreading, let's see. What's a good one on Dreading? We already listened to that one on the way home from Mom and Dad's before. Chat, do you have any recommendations for a good interrogation video? And I'm talking quality. I'm not just talking like somebody dropped raw interrogation footage into a YouTube video, but like a good...
I want the whole story.
Yeah, the whole story. Let's see. What's a good one? I got to remind myself of what's on Dreading, because when it comes to interrogation stuff, Dreading does a pretty good job. Let's see. So on Dreading...
How about the one where the guy says that he killed a cop while sleepwalking?
Oh, there is that guy. Let's see. Oh, well, they just did one on Brittany Zamora, the teacher that had relations with her student. Let's see. There's... Oh, I mean, there's good trial stuff. But I mean, that some of those are really long because they go on forever.
I'm looking for like 15 minutes, maybe like an hour.
Oh, an hour long one, huh?
They're usually like 4 hours.
How about an hour and a half? Do you know about the Dexter killer?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so on Dreading, look up, use the little magnifying glass, and look up Killer Writes Fan Fiction. Just write Killer Writes and Fan Fiction's all one word. And it's an hour and a half, and it covers the case and some interrogation footage, and tells you the whole story.
Awesome. Good.
And
Now I have something to listen to while I work.
yeah. Oh, wait. No, sorry. That wasn't the first video in the series. Pardon me. There's. Sorry. Okay. So, narcissist tries to be a serial killer, fails.
Oh, it's not Killer Writes fan fiction about himself.
Well, that's a companion piece to the original.
Okay, so
Narcissist tries to be a serial killer. The thumbnail's a guy posing like he's Wolverine.
Oh God.
I know.
No, I typed in narcissist serial killer.
Yeah.
It didn't come up.
Oh, okay. Tell you what, I will send you the link in email in a moment here. And then that'll hopefully help.
Thank you for taking the time during your important work.
This is important work. Isn't it important work, everybody? Okay. All right. Anyway. All right. Well, yes, I will send you the link momentarily, and maybe some other suggestions as well.
Okay.
All right. Love you. Bye-bye. Okay. There was Sister Scribe. I apologize for that unplanned interruption, but you know, she wanted my expertise on something, and I couldn't help but help. So let me send her an email real quick just to give her some links to some stuff. Yeah, there's some good Mad Orchard stuff I could send to. Just when I think about like interrogation stuff, it's mostly, well, I mean, Dreading does like trial stuff as well, but let's see, suggestions. I mean, my mind overwhelms if somebody says, "What's a good interrogation video?" I'll be like, 17,000 different options come to mind. Like, I don't know, it could be anything. Let's see here. And let's try this. I apologize. I'll get myself back on track here in a moment. Here we go. That's a good one too. All right. So we're going to send that to her. And there we go. Okay. Back to the story. Apologies, everybody. Let's see, Mad Orchard. Yeah, I sent her a Mad Orchard link for Sarah Boone. That might make her happy. Well, happy in the entertainment sense. Anyway, let's move on to the other offices in Baltimore. Yeah, so the Multicultural Affairs and Immigrant Services Office, it's going to service multicultural immigrants somehow. The Office of African American Male Engagement, which has a $1,849,764 budget, provides a community collaborative network that is dedicated to empowering African American males by providing targeted resources, mentorship, advocacy, and community engagement initiatives. Can we say meaningless buzzwords and buzz phrases? Yes, we can. Quote, activities performed by this service include addressing systemic barriers, fostering personal and professional growth, and enhancing opportunities for success across various life domains, including education, employment, and leadership, the budget states. Why are only African American males entitled to this kind of help? And I'm asking sincerely, like, why can't a African American female have access to this help? Why can't a white American male have access to this help? I don't know. The Office of LGBTQ Affairs, which has a $405,000, $140 budget, seems awfully small. I sense some discrimination here. Quote, champions equity, inclusion, and advocacy for Baltimore's LGBTQ community by providing training to all city employees and agencies, fostering a workforce and services that are inclusive and affirming. Okay, so it funds struggle sessions and guilt trips in offices and agencies. Gotcha. I wasn't sure for a second what exactly it would do, but the goal of the service is to ensure that Baltimore City remains a safe, affirming, and equitable environment where all residents, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, even though we're going to highlight specifics and dismiss and ignore others, can thrive. Key activities performed by the service include providing citywide cultural competency training and hosting community engagement activities, the budget states. Well, like I said, I feel like this is going to be people coming into your office and giving you a lecture on how to pronounce people's pronouns correctly. And community engagement activities, I can only assume, are drag queen read-ins or something. You know, it's unless you tell me otherwise, I'm not quite sure what else that's going to be. Other offices established as standalone services in the new budget include performance and innovation, infrastructure development, older adult affairs and advocacy, and the opioid restitution administration. The budget creates the Mayor's Office of Art, Culture, and Entertainment, which is set to receive $2 million. I gotta say, some of this sounds a little bit like money laundering. I don't know. Just with all this specificity we're getting. The Office of Equity and Civil Rights receives $11.2 million in the new budget, which it uses to, quote, promote equity, eliminate discrimination, and protect civil rights. How, you may ask? Who knows? It just does. $11.2 million. It just does. You know, and by the way, never mind that whole civil rights thing when we're talking about having an agency specifically geared towards people on the basis of their race and gender. Never mind that. That's not even coming close to a questionable action when it comes to civil rights or the Civil Rights Act of 1964. No, it's fine. Williams said that Mayor Scott needs to be more efficient in his budget proposal. You don't say. Quote, this has nothing to do with the fiscal well-being of the city of Baltimore. The mayor needs to batten down the fiscal hatches and make sure the city is solvent, that the city can afford basic services and not have to keep going back to the city council and board of estimates for more money. Well, no, the mayor's on a spending spree, dude. He's trying to solve all the world's ills by mysteriously dedicating millions of dollars to very ill-defined programs that all have very questionable goals and agendas in their titles. It's perfectly fine. The mayor's move to expand DEI efforts comes amid pushback from the federal government. Oh, you don't say. President Donald Trump signed an executive order in January that slashed federal DEI initiatives and directed federal agencies to, quote, take strong action to end private sector DEI discrimination, unquote. An extensive list of American corporations cut back on DEI efforts in recent months, including Google, Meta Platforms, Disney, Pepsi, McDonald's, and Walmart. Indeed. And as I've said, multiple times now, unless or until there are actual, tangible consequences for violating these laws, and I'm not talking about the executive orders. The executive orders are, as far as I'm concerned, superfluous. The laws already exist. They have existed since the 60s. They just need to be enforced. Consequences need to befall jurisdictions and organizations that violate federal law. Title VI and Title VII. Now, I'm not saying I have a video of a relatively well-known social media organization promoting the idea of violating Title VII and potentially Title VI if they are, accepting federal funding in some way, shape, or form and federal contracts or subsidies. I'm not saying, I don't have to say it because I've got it right here. And I'm going to play it for you now because that's just the kind of guy I am. This is from Snapchat. Yes, this is about 2 years old now. I know, it's a little stale, but this is the kind of video they would not produce today. And so just for the sake of, memorializing for future reference, let's listen to a little bit from Snapchat. I'm going to keep the sound off for the first few seconds because there's a musical cue and I don't want to risk any kind of copyright. So the first 3 or 4 seconds. Setting effective DEI goals. 4 strategies for success. Here we go, guys. Are you ready for 4 strategies for success when setting your DEI goals? I know I am.
Hi, I'm Siri Shalazi.
Ooh, that's a great name. That's a fun name to say. Siri Shalazi. Research Fellow, Women and Public Policy Program, Harvard Kennedy School. She, her. In case you were confused.
A gender and organizations researcher at the Women in Public Policy Program at Harvard Kennedy School.
Okay.
I go by she.
You go by she? I thought you went by Siri. But okay. Hello, she.
I was a member of the Catalyzed Tech Working Group that created the ACT report.
Oh.
And today I want to share with you 4 evidence-based strategies to improve the effectiveness of your diversity, equity, and inclusion goals.
I love evidence-based strategies. I would have liked some evidence-based reporting in some of the articles we read today. But tell me, what are some evidence-based strategies for achieving my diversity goals?
Number 1.
Number 1, if only I had the bingo card out.
Make your goals stretching yet realistic.
Make my goals stretching yet realistic, okay?
Research shows that challenging goals spur more behavior change than easy ones.
Okay, I'm taking this in bit by bit, and I'm also pausing for the sake of, this is critique and transformative work, etc.
But there is such a thing as goals that are too challenging, especially if people perceive them to be unattainable.
Okay, can you give me an example?
You want to thread the needle and strike a balance.
Okay.
A great example comes from the global professional services firm Accenture.
Accenture? Oh! Accenture's my favorite. Accenture was the first company that I ever profiled on my channel that said in no uncertain terms what their hiring policies were, how they were percentile-based, how they were quota-based. I often point to that video as sort of the turning point in my looking at diversity programs way back in the day. I think that video came out, like 2017 or something? And I think I named it Unfiltered Diversity or something to that effect. You can still find it on my channel. I think it is a very interesting historical artifact because you've got an executive from Accenture standing on a stage in Again, I believe it is a country that is not the U.S. or Canada or something, because it seemed to me that he was actively avoiding using colloquialisms or phrases that would confuse people. And he also referred to certain people in the audience and so on. Anyway, he made absolutely no bones about what Accenture's goals were and how they were measuring success. And to that point in my channel's history, I had not yet seen someone from a company be so unvarnished. So Accenture, I got a long history with Accenture. Tell me about Accenture.
Which in 2020 announced new goals for diversifying its U.S. workforce. By 2025, Accenture wants to increase the representation of its Black and African American colleagues from 9% to 12%.
Oh my gosh, 2025. Well, that's now. Guys, Accenture wants to increase its workforce on the basis of race by a measurable percentage over a time period. I don't know. I could be mistaken. I don't think I am. I could be mistaken. I think that might be something that would tempt fate with Title VII. You guys think that might? I think it might. That's just me.
And the representation of its Hispanic American and Latinx colleagues from 9.5 to 13%.
Oh, wow. Only 13%? Okay.
Both of these goals were the result of extensive internal data analysis.
Oh, did they analyze federal civil rights laws in the process of that?
Which showed that in order to reach them, Accenture would have to increase the number of African American and Hispanic American colleagues by about 60%.
Yes, I guess they would. If their only metric for success is the skin color or ethnicity of the people they are hiring, they would have to do that. Specifically, on that basis, hire people because of their race or ethnicity. Okay.
Stretching, yes, but also, in their estimation, doable.
Oh, I'm sure it's doable. I mean, when you whittle down someone's worth to the color of their skin, everything is possible.
Number 2, set both process and outcome goals. A lot of the goals we see tech companies setting are of the outcome type, meaning that they pertain to the actual outcomes we wish to see.
It's true. That is what an outcome, yeah, okay.
Such as doubling the share of Black software engineers.
Yes, yeah, increase the number of Black software engineers by 100%. Yeah, sure. That is an outcome. Sure.
However, the attainment of that overall goal is underpinned by a lot of organizational processes.
Oh, yeah, like maybe legal review.
Recruitment.
Oh.
Retention.
Oh.
Promotion.
Uh-huh.
For example, how many applications are you actually seeing from Black applicants?
I don't know. As long as I see one, I already know what my hiring decision is going to be. Right?
Are they making it through the recruitment funnel in proportion to the number of original applications that came in?
In proportion. I don't know. Let's say they aren't. What would you say is the resolution to that problem?
What about the interview stage? You might wish to set process-related goals for each of those stages and each of those processes.
You mean set up filtration systems based on race in order to achieve the correct number of applicants that look the part?
That directly feed into whether or not you meet your overall outcome goal.
Right, and if my overall outcome goal is to increase my programming population of African American programmers by twice as much as I currently have, then I want to make sure that at every step of the process leading to a hire, I'm really focusing very inordinately on the race of the applicants. Yeah, no, that sounds great. Yeah.
Indeed, research has shown that both process goals and outcome goals are highly effective at driving organizational change.
You know what? I believe you.
Number 3, break big goals into smaller constituent pieces.
Oh, sorry, I paused too quickly there. My apologies. Let me back up a little bit. I didn't mean to cut her off. I'm a more equitable presenter than that. Let me back up just a smidge. Okay.
Big goals into smaller constituent pieces.
Okay, how so?
It's the small daily actions of leaders, managers, and employees at all levels of your company that determine whether you meet your big, audacious, organization-wide goals.
I agree. It is a team effort to practice rampant, say, racial discrimination in your business and hiring practice. Now, everybody would have to be on board. Everybody's holding hands as they jump into the abyss of legal liability. Okay, yeah,
And if those employees at all levels don't understand how their daily decisions feed into the attainment or not of the big goal,
right,
it's more likely that their behaviors are not goal aligned.
Oh, okay. So if I, as an employee, have a problem with the idea that people are being hired or rejected, promoted or denied promotion on the basis of their race, then I would be a problem towards achieving the stated goal. Okay, so then what do you do with someone who would be so pessimistic and downbeat and obviously a spoil sport in that scenario? What would you do with someone who's not on board with rampant racial discrimination in hiring?
So take the time and make the effort to translate that big aggregate goal to employees at all levels to help them see how they can do their part.
How can I do my part to turn back the clock on half a century of civil rights advancements? Gosh, I think about that every day.
Need it. For example,
Oh.
what would it mean for every SVP and director in your company and the teams that report up to them if your goal is to double the share of women in senior leadership in the next 3 years?
What would it mean? It would mean that I'd have to immediately dismiss the idea of any man being worthy of attention. That's the first thing I'd think of. Or if I were someone employed at the company, that I could just kiss my opportunities to advance into a leadership position goodbye, right? I don't know. What do you say should happen?
What does it mean specifically for each SVP and director in terms of whom they're going to hire, retain, and promote?
Well, it means they can't be a man. First and foremost, they cannot be a man. So, was this a trick question?
This strategy was deployed with great success at the global consumer goods giant Unilever.
Was it? Oh, well, do I need to look up some Unilever promotional videos now?
Which increased its proportion of women in global management roles from 38% in 2010 to 50% in 2020.
Really? Wow. Okay, so now just saying that it increased from one percentage to another, it doesn't necessarily mean they did gender discrimination in hiring and stuff. I mean, it doesn't say they had a goal, but this is one of those instances where if there's some U.S. offices of Unilever, this would be something that if I were the EEOC or the civil rights arm of the Department of Justice, this would be a sort of a red flag to maybe do an audit. But proceed.
Ahead of schedule.
Ahead of schedule. Oh, there was a schedule. There was a schedule. Oh, so it was a quota. Oh, okay. Okay. Never mind. It's not implied. It's right there. Okay.
They took great pains to make it clear to each leader what they could do to pull their weight in achieving that massive global goal for a massive global organization.
Just deny employment and promotion opportunities to men. You know, for every man you hire 3 women elsewhere. Something like that, right? Good gravy.
And finally,
yes.
Number 4.
Yes.
Make at least some of your goals public.
At least some of my goals. Well, you know, I'm glad you made Accenture's goals public. I'm glad Accenture made them public. I'm glad that you made Unilever's goals public. I'm glad that Johnson & Johnson made their goals public until they recently scrubbed their website of all their past reports. You know, I'm glad that American Airlines, or was it United Airlines? Anyway, one of the airlines put out their goals for years and years and years. I'm glad that public schools have put out their goals. I'm glad that everybody was so proud to let us all know what they were doing. Until they actually might have to answer for it, and now the best we can do is try to save, archive, or broadcast those things before they're scrubbed from the internet. But yes, some of your goals should be public. How do you decide what should and should not be made public, I wonder?
Public goals scare companies for exactly the same reasons that they've been shown to be so effective.
Because of legal liability concerns?
They focus attention on the topic. They introduce time pressure.
Yeah.
And they institute a definitive benchmark against which it's very clear to judge whether you succeeded or failed.
I suppose so. If you say we're going to double our population of Hispanic programmers in our company in 5 years, I guess you have to say, well, what's our percentage population today? And what does it have to be in 5 years? And if we don't meet that goal, then, but if we do increase it, it doesn't reduce the kinds of violations of civil rights law that you engaged in the process. Well, anyway.
Public goals also serve as an important signal of your serious commitment to DEI.
You mean a virtue signal?
And in fact, a recent study showed that they can even help to achieve those goals.
Oh, do tell. Does that tell the world that, yes, we're hiring your kind of people?
When a company was explicit as part of their recruitment process about a specific diversity goal that they had set, they saw more applications from women and underrepresented racial and ethnic groups.
Now, I am going to take at least a small victory lap for that one. Golly, there you go. It's like, hey world, we're a company that discriminates on the basis of race and gender. If you fall into any of these demographics, you have a better chance of getting a job with us than those evil, straight white guys. So come on down.
Compared to when they just made a vague statement about valuing diversity.
Well, I like explicit statements personally. I think they, in the long term, would hold up better in court.
Now, not every goal has to be public.
Why not?
Outside the company, let alone inside. But do pick 1 or 2 serious game-changing goals that you are committed to, that you make public in order to create that real accountability for yourself.
Real accountability. Real accountability. Well, that's what I'm looking for. And I'm looking forward to real accountability. Do you think we'll get it? Do you think someday we'll get it? Real accountability? I don't know. Pardon me 1 second. Sorry, I got something popping up on me. I think that's about it. Is you going to go any further?
Thank you so much for listening, and very best of luck with setting and reaching your ambitious DEI goal.
Well, you've been so helpful. Thank you. You've highlighted 2 different companies. One I've looked at before. One I don't think I have. And you've also underscored just how little fear there was in telling companies and advising them to engage in demonstrably questionable hiring and promotion practices up until just recently. You're probably, and I underscore probably, it's not impossible, you're probably never going to see something like that produced again from a major company that says it so plainly. But the only way we're not going to see it rise from the grave is if we actually see consequences befall private companies and organizations that have been doing this stuff and continue to do this stuff for the last several years. So far, it's been a lot of talk. The only legal action I've been seeing has been coming from places like America First Legal, which is great. I'm glad something is happening, but it shouldn't be America First Legal that's bringing cases against companies and organizations for violating civil rights law. It should be the Department of Justice. It should be the EEOC and the civil rights arm of the Department of Justice. We haven't seen that yet in any meaningful way. Moves against universities and colleges, fine. But someone needs to be made an example of. And if you've heard me say this on past episodes of DEI Deathwatch and you're sick of hearing me say it, I apologize. But until I see it, I'm going to complain. Because we're now halfway through nearly the first year of the second Trump administration after his declarations at the top of his new administration. And thus far, I haven't seen the federal government take any meaningful legal move against a significant private organization or company for violating civil rights law. I'm not seeing any lawsuits against Amazon or Meta or Google or HP. You know, America First Legal just filed against Johnson & Johnson. I'm great, good. I hope something comes of that. But it shouldn't be outside parties and independent organizations fighting to defend civil rights laws and punish people for violating them. It should be the federal government. So I'm waiting. I know, like I said before, these things take time. Maybe they're building their cases. They've talked about making lists of the worst offenders and on and on. Well, I'll be happy when the day finally comes, if it finally comes. And that's where I'm kind of stuck right now. Anything else before I end today's episode? Scribelight, how do you have any accountability when you have secret and hidden goals no one knows about? Seems contradictory. Yeah, and I've always wondered what accountability means. The only thing I've seen is the accountability is, hey, executive at Corporation X, if you meet this diversity goal, you get a bonus. If you don't meet the diversity goal, you don't get the bonus. That's the accountability that I've seen more often than not, that there is financial incentives tied to meeting diversity quotas. Other than that, I'm not quite sure what they mean by accountability. I've seen countless times on videos where they talk about holding people accountable, but they never get specific about it. Like, if I don't meet this diversity goal, you're going to fire me or something? No, they usually have financial incentives tied to it. At least that's the only thing I've seen of any note. Mike Savage, and my peripheral vision is back. Well, I have no context for that comment, but I'm going to assume heavy drinking. Just for the hell of it. I'm hoping it's not a medical condition. And that I didn't just, make light of anything or, descend into stereotypes because of the flag that is represented by your avatar. But yeah, Anyway, Susano Alarachar, generally it means auditing, but I missed whatever this was about. This is about diversity quotas and goals and such, and meeting them and holding people accountable. And like I said, the financial incentive is the only accountability I've ever seen specifically listed by companies. Hit this goal or you won't. Oh, here we go. Mike Savage, yay, the drugs work. Just realized my migraine is gone and I'm cooking on gas. Okay. I retract my comment about implied alcohol abuse by Mike Savage. I am totally on board with getting rid of migraines. I experience them myself from time to time, and when they show up, they are bad. So I'm glad that your migraine is gone. What medication did you use? I only asked that because I have used medication for migraines before, but it's really powerful stuff depending, and it can be habit forming. So just Just making sure. Just don't abuse alcohol. It's a friend. I hit that bottle so hard, the booze hurt. I don't know. Anyway, everybody, I think I've reached the end of my commentary for today on diversity, equity, and inclusion. If you have DEI stories you think I'd be interested in or that people should know about, either from your local town or your own personal experience or a business you're familiar with, you can also always tell me on the Twitter machine at scribe_light or over on the Discord server. Would you like to join the Discord server? Well, all you have to do is click on that link I just put into the chat. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you're not a bot, have actually watched the stream and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is Smithsonian. Just say hello, Smithsonian, and I'll know that you watched the show. Outside of that, you can find me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, unless scheduling contradicts, for Midnight's Edge in the morning at 9:05 a.m. Pacific Time, noon 05 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about movies and entertainment and box office and all types of goofy stuff and try to have some fun along the way. Also, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern is TED Excellence, where I go over off-brand TED Talks for education and enlightenment, along with TEDx Bingo, which you can join in on, of course. We'll learn about different things and different weeks. Don't know what this week's subject will be, but we'll find out Wednesday. And just to note that there will be no Saturday stream this week, as a pre-planned trip to see my folks is happening on the Saturday, so that'll be happening. I may do a Sunday stream as compensation for the missed Saturday stream, just like I did this past weekend, but that'll all depend on at how late I get home Saturday night, and if I have the energy come Sunday morning. I will let you guys know as soon as I can on the Discord server come Saturday night or Sunday, whichever comes first. I think Saturday night comes before Sunday, but you know what I mean. Anyway, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciate it. Elsewise, everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your Monday. I hope the week ahead of you treats you well. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.